What's up, squad? This is Brandon from the band Tucson. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, I came across the tweet, and it quite aligned with something I was looking to talk about anyway, about nice guys finishing last, and especially when it comes to this game of geopolitics. And I thought this tweet tied in nicely with what we're seeing going on in Venezuela. So the tweet I'm reading is from a person named Rita who goes by the name South Europa with a V as in Victor. So big thanks, Rita, for posting this. I thought it was very succinctly said, and I wanted to communicate it with you all. She said, working at a company where half the people are based in Germany and the other half are based in the US really gives you a perspective on how both of these people think and work. Germans are super high maintenance to work with. Every new idea needs to come with a set of predefined rules and structure before any action is taken. Meanwhile, with Americans, you give them some crumbs, and as long as the idea feels and seems good, they will jump into it and solve problems as they go. Germans think the American way is inefficient or careless, but the reality is that life is rarely predictable and often rewards action and speed over cautiousness or fear of failure. I think Americans are right about this. Risk is to be managed in motion. Action create information. The cost might be rework and sometimes chaos, but the upside is momentum and learning. And I really thought that point she calls out about speed and action, overcoming caution and fear of failure. In a lot of this, you can see actually is proved by geopolitics. Germany kind of carved this way out of steel, surrounded by the Swedish empires and the Danes to the north, the Russians to the east, the French Empire to the west, and the Austrians and Austro-Hungarians to the south. And Germany really had to carve its own way and unite its German-speaking people. And this really gave them a sense of pride and strength. And it's quite a display in the 19th century, the great achievements of the German people. But it was deliberate, slow, cautious because they obviously were in a various perilous situation surrounded by all those empires. And the Germans fought a lot of wars, a lot of them before their unification, the great state of Prussia, which I talk about many times. But Germany really had to carve its way in a very dangerous part of the world. The United States, on the other hand, everything they did justified the act prior. When they sailed across the oceans, they found this large coastline full of natural harbors in the mid-Atlantic to the northeast of the United States. Go in a little bit interior, you start to unveil coal countries that are Appalachia. Go into a little bit of the interior, you start to get these vast swaths of flat, fertile land in the Great Plains. Go in a little bit more west, more into the interior. You start to discover that dry the western plains, but this is great grazing ground for cattle. And in some of these places, especially in the mountainous states, you start getting copper and a lot of those heavy metals within the mountains along the Rocky Mountains. And then you go further to the west, from east coast to west coast, you get California and the west coast. Now you got access to the Pacific. Ports along the Pacific that get you to the Asian markets directly, not needing to go through around Cape of Good Hope or through the Middle East like the Europeans. America had direct access to the East Asian markets from the Pacific coast, as well as you have that southwest region of California, which is a more diversified, temperate, give you some of those citrus fruits, wine countries that's nowhere else available in the northern North America. So for the United States, when they took risk, it paid off deeply, and it is embedded in their psyche. In their psyche, the more we do, the more we have, and this goes into American exceptionalism, as you can say, and this American sense of self. Whether true or not, does it really matter? If it allows the American spirit to have confidence in self, to dare the bold, and if fortune favors the bold, why is this not beneficial? Americans didn't run into the outback like the Australians. America didn't run into the impenetrable, the barren wastelands of Siberia like the Russians. Americans didn't run into the impassable Andes or the dense thicket of the Amazon jungles of South America. So the American mindset in that fundamental state is optimistic. And you see this with this recent, we could say this bold action by President Trump to overthrow the leader of another country. And this also coincides with an interview I saw with Rand Paul and Congressman Rand Paul. And when I was younger, I used to think, you know, these guys were so intellectual because they were able to justify being a good person in such an articulate way. Most people kind of want to go along and get along. They really don't want to step on people's feet. But most people don't rule the world. A select few rule the world. And now I see these people and I almost roll my eyes because I'm trying to think what great nations, what great powers have been created by libertarians or these individual freedom people. These people, they espouse these principles to win good favor upon the morally righteous people of the world. And all they have words. I will put Rand Paul from a rhetoric point of view in the same vein as I put a President Obama from a rhetoric point of view, that is. Like they have words that can tickle the heartstrings of their followers, but at the end of the day, when the smoke settles, there is only action, right? There is only we're living with the consequences of actions. I remember President Obama's speech, just words. Yes, exactly, just words. There is just words. And at the end of the day, action counts more than inaction. For lack of better phrasing, big balls count better than no balls. So you have to understand this is how power works. When you look at President Trump, I see a man, for whatever his faults, has been phenomenally successful in the world that we have built. The world where he became extremely wealthy, and from an economic business point of view, he was successful, and he's became a president twice. So from a social political aspect, he was successful. And this wasn't a person that won the lottery. This is a person that got rich off of or grew his wealth and established his brand and developing skylines in Manhattan, some of the most luxurious real estate within the United States. So he did it in a very competitive field. And how does he act when given an opportunity? And that's another thing. A lot of these politicians, they all act the same. Some of them have rosy rhetoric. They just have the rosy rhetoric. And President Trump doesn't have the rosy rhetoric. And he say, we're going to do it because we can do it and nobody can stop us. Every real politician think this way. Everyone. Had the roles be switched between Maduro and Trump, do I think there would have been hesitations on Maduro's side? Not at all. But I'm listening to this Rand Paul, who talks about how Congress was so feckless, they couldn't do anything. He still can't do anything, but trying to espouse some moral ideology, some moral superiority. Talks about, well, we have done the same thing. We're friends with Saudi Arabia, and he talks about the dismantling of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi that was carried out by Saudi Arabia. The real question is, how did Saudi Arabia get away with such an act? That's the real question. Not that they got away with the act, because obviously they did, but how? What connections they had? How did they get to such a status in this world that even such a heinous act went unpunished, or at least to a severe degree? And I thought, listening to him, and I had to roll my eyes once again, is because beware of these people. Beware of these people that try to appeal to your sense, your moral sense of righteousness, that try to temper you. I think about how they use logic. So many times these manipulators, they use logic to build a framework to enslave you, to limit you. All because X, Y, and Z, you can't do this. All because I always argue the unemployment rate is one of the worst. The minimum wage is one of the most heinous things to lower class people because it gives them an unfair advantage because they have usually low skill. But they'll espouse this and they'll say, oh no, we need a minimum wage because we have to guarantee a quality of life for everybody. Well, all the minimum wage does is block out aspiring people with a very low skill set. So they use logic and they try to appeal to you from a moral point of view. And the minimum wage in itself has caused so much widespread unemployment. It's ridiculous because if you can't get the job in the first place, how are you expected, or you can't get the opportunity in the first place, how are you expected to establish yourself and and make the observations and develop the insight and skills to level yourself up beyond the level of the minimum wage? So it's such a travesty in itself. So beware of those that use logic, and at the end of their logic, there is some rule or some law that has to be imposed upon you. So what I try to do is we look at all these things from a geopolitical point of view because this is the highest level of the game. This is the chessboard. And we understand that moving your feet is probably going to be the greatest advantage you can possibly have in your life. By matching up arbitrage and connecting supply and demand imbalances, that's going to be the easiest slope for you to achieve some of your life lessons. At least from the experience that I've had in this world and from the people that I observe. So you take that situation, and we want to give you information and use logic to empower you to say, okay, citing precedent, this is what we've seen. And this is how you can use this to empower you, to take advantage of a situation, to put yourself in a stronger position. And I'll leave on this note. The Olympics is a prime example. There's a famous South African comedian in America, Trevor Noah, and he makes a joke about the Olympics and how there's so many medals within swimming as opposed to running. Now, running is obviously incorporated in the track and field, but that's the point exactly. For doing different types of swimming, there are so many medals. You have Michael Phelps is this phenomenal, seen as a phenomenal athlete. Where you have a person like Usain Bolt, he's maxed out because of the medal count within that field, and there's so many specialties that he can have. Now, look at the countries and look at what sports are in the Olympics. It's no wonder that the countries with the larger economies do better at the Olympics. They're also able to jockey for sports that are more favorable to their culture and their demographics. Basically, they're fixing a deck and then they're selling to you as a just product. But these people have already manipulated the cake. You're just eating it. And you're saying, oh, this cake is delicious, but you don't understand how good it could have been had it been fair. And the only person that's going to make it fair, the only person that's going to balance it out and put the ingredients in there that need to be in there from your point of view is you. That's the game. So I just want to say, when it comes to geopolitics, don't let anybody ever limit you, use logic to marginalize you. Because at the end of the day, the people that really get ahead are the people that recognize opportunity and they seize it. They don't wait for permission. They calculate the risk reward and then they take action. So, love to hear your thoughts on this. Like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.